I'm here with Caleb Lamont. Is that correct, Caleb Lamont?
Yes,
You know, when
Caleb Lamont.
I was looking up the symbol on the for the last thing we did on your Lamont clan Lamont, and found I saw that they had a warship during World War II, HMS Lamont. Also, I was like, okay, I can research this. I, I, I can imagine you have been looking into a lot of that, right?
They're so obscure. Uh, you can go into like Celtic themed uh, shops where they, sell merchandise. They have spinner racks of all the different clans in Scotland, but they don't have Lamont.
What? How many
So,
different types of clans do you have?
oh man,
Not exact,
there's
but 50 or
well, I'm talking about like some of these merchandise shops. You go in there, they've got multiple spinner racks, all full of Scottish clans, and so you can buy your name. They have like pretty much all the names there, like Mackenzie, uh, McGregor, McDougal, uh, all of them. They just have spinner racks full of them. Lamont, nowhere to be found.
ain't that curious? In regards to the
Yeah.
history behind your clan. I mean, they must have been at some point like illegitimized or been taking off their title in more formal.
It seems like it's what I get from it is that there is a history which is very interesting, but I think it's on both parts. I think the clan themselves doesn't care that they're not in the spotlight, so to speak.
Hmm.
Um, they're not out there trying to say, "Oh, our history is so great and we're got forgotten about." It's like no, that they just don't care. Like they're glad to be not in the spotlight, I guess.
But
But
I also found like when I searched for Lamont, I found all of these kind of research boats and like all kind of like still today like more modern like a yacht. This is a kind of rich man's boat also named after the Lamont.
a boat? What?
Yeah, this boat. I'm really interested in boats, so I like draws towards that, and I started out with this World War II ship, which was in the Royal Navy, HMS Lamont, some kind of this kind of ship that take troops, I think, or infantry, more sieging the shores type of ship. But I just thought it was interesting, and this is the Second World War. But then I also saw this kind of more research type based in the 90s. That was also some kind of Le Monde boat. Uh,
Well, the the history of the Lamonts is not. It's weird trying to find out about them
hmm.
because they. How can I even convey this? It's hard to find out a whole lot. Um, the official story is that they're just this small clan on this small peninsula
Mm-hmm.
um, that had lands. They used to have more lands, but then they gradually lost land holdings to the Campbells,
The Campbells.
and then yeah,
What are
they
they?
duked it out with the Campbells quite a bit. The
What are they?
Campbells, the Campbells are a lowland uh, clan who is actually Brythonic. rather than Gaelic. Um,
What does that
the
mean, really?
okay, so in prehistory, kind of the British Isles, you got to look into the language groups, the
Yes.
Celtic language groups. There's Peak Celtic, there's Gaelic and Brythonic, and
Brythonic.
those are the two mate
Where does that
Brythonic or
come?
Brittonic.
What?
Britons,
Oh yeah.
Britain, yeah, yeah. Brittonic,
Oh, I see.
Brythonic, same thing. But there's multiple branches. There's like the Welsh version. There's extinct versions of the language as well.
But
But
just a question: is it like
Celtic
dialects or just different?
languages, man,
So you can't
they're
even understand each other, right? I know Gaelic is really weird. I've been to Ireland. I mean, there are songs from this folk bands,
think of if
in Gaelic.
Irish Gaelic person tried to talk to a Welsh speaking person.
Okay.
It wouldn't really probably work. I mean, maybe they could really fucking try and
Yeah.
have a little bit of success, but it's too and that's basically the case as far as what I'm getting at here is that see most of the Scottish clans were Gaelic speaking, but when you get down into the lowlands, that it was Brythonic, but they ended up all getting lumped together as Scottish clans, anyways. So yeah, this Campbell clan was not really related to the rest of the clans, and the word Campbell is goes back to a Gaelic word meaning crooked mouth.
Cable Bridge.
So yeah, so the rest of the I can only imagine how this went down, but um, they probably ran into these other Gaelic clans, and the other clans probably said, "Oh, we'll call you Campbell." And oh yeah, what's that mean? Oh, it means noble.
Hmm.
Actually, it means crooked mouth. But then the name stuck. So yeah, the the crooked mouth clan, which means like liar, you know, or
Campbell. Yes, it's
yeah.
interesting.
So that went down.
It's a
But back to the Lamonts.
yes.
Um, they're content with that story. They're content with that being the story of the clan to say, yeah, we were just over here on this peninsula. But look at uh, some place names. Loch Lomond.
Hmm.
Loch Lomond, which, according to the mainstream story, is like way outside of the territory of the Lamonts. Another way to spell Lamont is with a D at the end instead of a T.
Yeah.
So it would be Clan Lamond. So that lake is named after the Lamonts.
The
And
moon.
also, there's a lake down in uh, France or Switzerland um, called Lac Leman. And there's something with this etymology. I'm not sure. And they renamed it to Lake Geneva, I guess, after World War II. But it used to be called Lac Leman. I keep finding these different old places that um, go back to that etymology of Lamont or Lamon, Lamond,
Le Monde.
Laman.
I'm thinking about
Uh,
the etymology from like the Finnish perspective. You would have like the Mond or the Mon, the Mond. It has to do with the moon, like in month. You know, månad we say, or the måne, mån. Also the N there, but you have the LA or LA, la, which is like law and author. So if you look at it from that perspective, it becomes very high, because the moon has to do with kingship and all of that symbology. I'm just trying to think about how you had like an emblem. I wasn't really sure, but this hand is really interesting because it's like very Masonic, you know, almost like a stop sign or like a he's crossing his finger right to the pawn there. I'm gonna and the colors. I wasn't really sure about the colors, but it's all in the flags of Finland and Sweden. They had the same colors that they use. The yellow, no, the gold and blue, or the yellow and blue. But it's really gold and blue, and the blue and white, which seems to be the theme throughout the Le Monde symbology, right?
Yeah, blue and white for sure.
Yeah, and Finland has that as their flag now. But of course, I mean Ukraine used the same colors as Sweden. They even mention it on TV for us sympathizing, you know. And yeah, it's interesting. I love the symbology, and when I'm looking into this Le Monde, it's so much there. But I'm probably sure you're quite known, or you know a lot about the things that you can find on the internet. But I was also thinking, like, isn't there a way that the Le Monde or Le Monde today have some kind of society, or that you have meetings, family, this kind of things where you can reach out to the other from the same
The
family.
uh, the leader of the Lamont clan is a drunk lady in a castle in Scotland.
You should go there and knock the door and hear what she has to say. It's always good when they talk shit about someone, because for me that's more interesting.
As far as I'm concerned, I am the king of the Lamonts.
Okay, awesome. I can feel that also. You come from a great school, at least. And
Yeah.
when I say so, I mean like unslaved school. I mean Michael Tesarian is such a behemoth and true individualism. That is really good during this age and time. I mean,
Yeah.
the world is going fucking haywire. I mean, I get shocked, not shocked, but you have the pre-consumption that it's gonna be terrible, and if you have that, you never get like shocked, but at least you can
What are
get
your
pleasant
thoughts
surprised.
on what are your thoughts on historical amnesia? When you look at people who don't really remember history, it's not even the fact that people don't study history and they don't really even remember, um, the history of their own country, the history of their own family, um, let alone the occult histories like the Bach saga
I think
and
I think
other things that we know about. But you look at people and some shit goes down that everybody is focused on Facebook or whatever, and then 2 months later they forget about it and they're on to
yeah,
something else.
I know this. This is a
What
tendency. I've been also recognizing that, like in practical life, it's hard to keep like a schedule or something in continuum. Like for an instance, when you have a
there's
band.
people like us out here, like we're like fucking troopers, we're ready to go and
Yeah, yeah.
unpack this knowledge and present these histories and everything. But people are so
But I'm sad to
um, not ready.
but I don't. I'm sad to say, but like in the Box Saga, for example, there's a clear hierarchy of people. You have like, not to be like that, but you have higher and lesser beings. People are not equal. People are still not equal. I mean, that's just a fantasy, really, that people are equal. But some people just have a higher capacity. That's for sure. I mean, that's what they call like genius today, or but. This racial or historical amnesia you're talking about, I think it's very racial, if I talk in that term. But I recognize that a lot of people from like Middle East or from the more South American, Mexico and the old Maya, Inca, those kind of people, they are sort of, you know, uh, Sweden has become a very multicultural country, and I sort of embraced that as a kid. It has its problems, and I don't vouch for it, but we're living in it today, and I met a lot of friends from different countries that has taught me a lot, and those people are very aware of their background and history often, especially, it's the immigrants that are most connected to their past, even like racial past. Look at the like Italians in America, and so I mean they are so aware. I even think the Americans, the Swedish Americans, who came there like in the 15, 1600, they are more patriotic than most Swedes probably, and sort of proud of their heritage. But it comes to a more even more like pressing subject that can be very controversial, and with the race mixing, if you are like in that scenario, those are very conflicted within, I think, about their past and drawn towards different, you know different, so it doesn't become this clear heritage.
All
And
right.
yeah,
So
and
I'm going to pierce this shit right now, my friend.
okay.
We got to get into the box saga a little bit deeper as far as what this actually entails.
Yes, it's not stepping on anyone's toes, so I mean, it's a like for me, I know my ancestry very well because my grandmother has been doing extent research, and it's very 100% Swedish in this case, as far as back to 1500. So I'm very like drawn towards that. I know where my roots really are. So I think it's yeah, it's a really heavy question, or a subject. This the historic amnesia is so many aspects to it. That's what I'm talking about. Um, Sort of be proud of heritage doesn't really go into the brain. They can't really conceptualize how I can be proud over something that Swedes did like 400 years ago. I mean, that's a foreign, very strange thoughts for people that, in my experience, are more mixed uh, between different yeah different groups of people that have different, it branches out so much for them. I don't know, it's the most controversial subject to talk about today, but I'm not afraid about those subjects, but I don't want to step on anyone's toes also, because those individuals are all, you know nothing wrong with them. I think it's very cultural also. The funny thing in Sweden is that the immigrants that are really embracing Swedish culture and heritage, they are like the ones that are voting for the most right wing parties here in Sweden. It's a weird
Well, to
phenomenon.
it's almost like the consciousness of people is drifting into the Box Saga,
Mm-hmm.
like what it actually entailed as an experience to be living in those days where it wasn't a concern uh,
Like in
to be
paradise.
concerned. Say again.
Like in the paradise time.
Yeah, in the paradise times, people would not have been concerned about um, heritage pride and blah blah blah
No.
and politics and stuff like that. That was all left to the upper guys, as far as
Yes.
that they'll worry about that. We live in a ringland, and you should talk about the ringlands. We live in a ringland. We're protected. We're just here doing our thing, and that's what kind of what people are like today. It's like their consciousness is drifting back to that, but um, and that's why you can't get them to uh, focus on anything or retain anything.
Yeah, but
Um,
this really connects back to what we were talking about before, like symbolism, because like here down here where I live, there's a shopping mall called Utopia. I mean, what is even Utopia? And paradise time described in Boxsaga is Utopia. And that really means
exactly.
the ursprung or the origin is on the top and E aser. Like if you go all around in the sound system, you are gonna get like EA, V, via, VIA. You know, it's a system that entire, you know, covers the globe also. So everyone is like one race of people. I don't know if it's harmony. You know, we only have like the structural with the
Talk about the ringlands a little bit, man.
yeah, but if you take it from the basic, you know, the utopia is the first ringland, the top, the origin, the u. I don't know how what you say in English. It's like u, u. You know, it's
At
like
the
an
North Pole, right?
u means origin. Ursprung, it means like sprung out of. So it's that. It's in the word ursprung, which is the you know the actual name for the sound u. And this is really complex to go into because how do they even come up with such a concept that u means ursprung? I mean, it's such high consciousness. But the ringland starts at the top, and then it follows. It's sort of like they already knew the mathematics and the exact radius diameter of the globe, so they could make ringlands accordingly to it's some kind of geomancy. We have been talking about ley lines and all of this, and they're using the hexagram, the six-pointed star, the flower of life structure to create those ringlands. As the population or the ursprung grows, uh, and that's the utopia or the Midgård or the top, the utopia is like the governing state or the governing a state within the entire state. Like they still do. It's different because they speak a different language there that the rest of the planet doesn't have, which is called root, or the Asur language, and everyone was mimicking what was happening in the utopia or the top ringland. It's the
Question:
yeah, yeah.
Were was each ringland um, isolated in terms of breeding? Like, were there crossbreeding between ringlands, or was it all within one ringland per breeding, so to speak?
it Everything went via the top ringland. That's you have in the alphabet, in the Boxag alphabet. They construct the entire society system based on the sound system. So everything has to go via the author. You have the, if you do the alphabet, the A B C D E F G H I J K L M N O P Q R S T U V I A B C D, it goes in a ring, but you have some letters outside like X, I, Z, O, A, Ö. Those are like standoffs, but the others are like in a ring, so the system has to go accordingly.
So say like you had the top ring at the North Pole. It's surrounded by 6 other rings, and then those are surrounded by these rings, and it keeps going down. Say way down in the south. Say you have some ringlands down there. Would those ringlands down further south, would they be like cross breeding with each other, hopping over the wall, and
No,
checking out what the
if you look at this Moses story, or the Jesus story, it's like a big taboo, because they went off the chart with the breeding program and made like quote unquote illegal child. So they were exiled, and Jesus was born, according to this story. Those came from the author, the top family. Those are very important people, but they sort of jumped out, and extracting from that, part of the mythology, it was very taboo to go, to stray away from the system that they had. Very, I can imagine heads were almost shot, but I don't want to bring my own theories into the saga, but I mean, we are still humans, right? And look at the human today. I don't know, we have some kind of fraction inside, but to be honest, I felt this mostly, I don't know, I feel very good today, and a lot of it come from the understanding of the book saga, because I have a much more personal relationship with history, and a much clearer, more red line, I used to call it, the royal line.
So um, today you kind of look at how we raise our offspring. We have kids, we send them to public school,
Hmm.
for 12 years, and then they're on their own. They have to get a career,
Yeah.
and maybe they meet somebody, get married, and have kids, and start all over again. And you kind of look at the landscape. A lot of the younger looking people will move to the city, and the farmers and the countryside, you kind of go out there, and it's like, I don't know how it is up there, but in the
It's
United
very
States, man,
much so.
you go in the United States, you go out to the countryside, and it's like all the beautiful people left the countryside behind, and it's
Yeah.
just ugly people out there. You know what I
Yeah,
mean?
yeah, yeah, I know
Um,
exactly what you mean. This is
but
something that harkens back. Europe and America, especially Europe, they are the civilization that is created, or it's like we had a civilization in Europe, Scandinavia, Russia, already before the church came. They torched it, they blazed it on fire. We have the Vikings as a result, the Danish Vikings, those kind of forces. Those are like pacifist people, they're heathens, really. So to use force is a really big commitment. In my eyes, this is also very. But this is the interesting thing. It's all flipped 180 degrees, history and everything. That's also why I think a lot of people have this kind of, especially here in Sweden, they all pose up and being the strong. They take the Viking image. It's really good. I also come from that. I'm also a warrior in my own sense, but my battle axe is the guitar, you know. It's a different age, but what the point is that the civilization we live in today springs out of the heathen with this, you know, the class system and all of this. It's a corruption, you could say, from the past, or it has been hijacked or used. Uh,
Oh, you talked about the pubs and the bars being sort of
yes,
heathen remnant.
yes,
We talk about that.
yes. But this is a interesting thing because when the church came and took over, I mean Sweden, and when I say Sweden now, I mean also Finland because it was the same empire uh, from 1200, I think, 1250, and from that time it has been, you know, really fresh, this conversion. I mean, the rest of Europe hasn't really. They have been under the Catholic control for much, much longer. Some parts of Europe even like 1,000 years. I mean, so they were really, you know, they had control for like 300 years. Then the heathens took back Sweden from the Catholics. This is how I see it. Really rough time, very bloody time, but they managed to do so. It's some kind of the last, the very, very last, but they did it in a Masonic way where they pose as Christians, and they needed trade routes and starting to establish some kind of information system again. So they have something called gästgiveri in Swedish, or it's like taverns, but it was a part of a system. Every tavern was connected via trade routes and also information routes, so they could take horses from one tavern, leave it in the next tavern, pick a new horse, fresh horse, then you go. You know, this sort of system. And what I heard from the mythology coming out from Finland is that it was the Buck family that was given like the permit to manage those networks. It's really a Templar thing or a Jarl Earl thing. You know, you have the Pirouette Roset family, which is the Aser family, and then you have the Jarlet, Carlet, and Trelet. It's like those 5 classes of people within the heathen system, but the Jarl is really the networking guys. And the Finnish Buck family were sort of given some kind of privilege to run this, so they could also this kind of bard culture, and you know, like the song rhymes, a lot of rhymes and this kind of songs, so it could like affect future generations, or you know, this kind of subliminal or more working from the shadows type of approach, which yeah, which brings us to masonry, really. And I'm really interested in the Templars and the masonry when I was really opposed to those kind of things also before, but as I have been studying book saga and listening to Jim and Michelle, you know, I talk to those people quite regularly. You know, I keep in touch, so we talk a lot, and I can ask questions, and they bring more mythology that isn't even on tape. Those guys have so much to say, and it all come from Eeyore, you know, and also their own personal exploration, so to speak. But those who has been really good friends with Eeyore, you know, it's so anchored in them. When I want to hear about like Gustav III, for example, a Swedish king that was assassinated by the Illuminists coming out of France, he can tell a side story about a secret war with Russia that nobody in the Swedish government even knew about. It was about the independence of Sweden. You know, stuff like this. So it's very interesting when you start to look at it from this perspective that the Templars or the original Masons, the Templars really, the nice Hospitallers, I think, the Jacobins are like coming out of the heathen, but they are working in the shadows. But that's a huge story that I've been talking so much about uh, in previous podcasts. I think it's a fascinating study because it involves so much symbolism. Sweden is riddled with this because
Well,
of
it
the
makes sense
yeah
when you're being hunted.
yeah. I mean, very interesting aspect to this, and it's so alive. It's something that's still going on today. I think this battle, but I think yeah, I don't know. I don't really know. I'm not a futurist guy. I'm looking at history. Give comments based on history. I like historical anecdotes because it's parallel to what's happening today in many cases. Um, yeah, I mean, in the book Saga, the his story belongs to the guy, and the future is the female. I think it's natural. But then it's our job to instruct the females what works and
I
not.
kind of wondered about how the different race lines, uh, the whites, um, the Asians, the Africans, and the sort of Native Americans being the four primary like race lines. This could have been a result of the process of the ringlands because you look at like dogs, like Chihuahuas were wolves not too long ago.
No.
So with
Yeah,
this
but of
ringland
course.
system, yeah, with the ringland system, which was managed to a T, and it wouldn't take long, I would say, before you could really specialize um, in terms of uh,
That's correct.
offspring. Yeah, you so say even a black person from Africa, like from Kenya or whatever, or the Congo, and us, uh, we look at that and be like, oh, it must have been millions of years. But how long ago was it since the ringlands existed? Like 13,000 years ago,
Uh,
the ringlands
I
were
mean,
still intact.
I'm gonna make it very simple. I talked about paradise time. This was over 50 million years ago, and then we had this first Ragnarok, the tilt, and it brought with it the ice age here. So the rest of the planet were, those different ringlands that survived the catastrophe. They were separated from their source, the Utopia or the Midgård, the garden.
Here's the thing, man. You got to read Cataclysm.
Hmm.
There's a book called Cataclysm, and one of the first things they break down is that the Ice Age actually only lasted uh, like for a few thousand years.
Yeah, I know
So
they say that.
right, they say you go on Wikipedia and it says it lasted over a million years or whatever.
Yeah, but
However many
it's just
million years.
speculative. How could they know? It's always piling. It's like when they talk about history and dating like the Gotland runestones, for example. They say like 3-4 thousand years ago, but it's all based on like other assumptions in the scientific fields. So it's a column of knowledge. That's why it's so upsetting when there is like a new controversial find. For example, they found a fire pit or a hair. It has been some kind of remnants from people before up in the very north of Sweden, like in Kiruna, I think it was. It's like in the very end of the Baltic Sea up between Finland and Sweden, and the founding there was dated to like 9,000 something years ago, and people were like, what the fuck does this even mean? Because it upsets the entire fucking program they are going with. So, I mean, this Ice Age thing also, I don't think, yeah, it must be really hard to put an exact date on it. I mean, I'm just talking out of the box saga perspective, but if you give, what I was coming to is when you talk about the time and the development, so we can branch out to different races, so to speak. But you know, we come from the same source still, so it doesn't really matter, you know. In that sense, we are still the same race or being. I mean, we are very alike if you get to know other people from other races, so to speak. I mean, I'm talking from
What do you think about Pangea?
Pangea, Pan.
Pangea was. I used to think Pangea theory was ridiculous, but
I haven't really.
considering cataclysm idea, because it says that all of the continents were together
Oh
at
yeah,
one
yeah,
point
yeah.
in the past.
But it's
Yeah,
essentially true when you look at it from the Boxaga perspective. At one point in the creation story, there, you know, the planet were sort of this egg, and it was compressed, you know, into a little sun, and it sort of exploded and expanded out, and you know, the continents just came out where they are today, like they have been so forever in this story. But at one point they were like one column, like one
yeah. No,
like one
that's
seed.
different though.
Yeah, but
Okay,
it's sort
yeah,
of, but it sort of explains that theory that they fit together, you know, because they come from one seed where all like the mass or the continent, the granite and you know the building rocks. It
and
was one piece at one point, and then it expanded out, and the water in the, you know, the white egg, the white in the egg is like in symbolic the water and like the atmosphere also, but the sort of mixed, I guess, gases and shit.
right.
But anyway, it sort of yeah, explains over that theory and can explain it in a really good way. Instead of drifting
What's curious?
continents, I
Yeah.
mean, come on.
Here's something else curious: is the idea of the equator and the people anywhere south of the equator does not see the North Pole or the North Star. I mean,
Hmm.
once you get below the equator,
Exactly.
now the Bach saga was based in the North Pole
Yes.
as a center. Did the ringlands extend below the equator?
Yes. You know, they had to. Have you seen this Chinese? I think it's a Chinese statue with this. I think it's a lion with a paw on a ball with the, you know, with the flower of life structure, because it's like a grid. But of course, you cannot have ringlands where there's no land. So there was not like floating cities in this sense. And also, I don't know what's beneath the surface of the south, but I think it's just water in the South Pole, right? I'm not sure, but
No,
it,
there is land under there.
okay. But then it should have been a ringland there too, if it fits
They would have had
together.
to sail. They would have had to sail down there
Yeah, but there was
and start building
caravan.
them.
The caravan we call it, is like a this kind of exchange system between the ringlands and going all the way via the top and down from all ringlands, like this continuum of routes, boats, by land, you know. Like Jim said, the first invention of the human being must have been the boat, because this goat and the monkey is supposed to, do the deed there on the 7 islands of hell in Udama, and it's on an island. Um, so they must have been either been swimming a lot for our distance, or they could have been making a boat. It's just like a side theory, but interesting to say. But I think the boat is one of the first like real vehicles or enhancement of the human being.
I wanna read something to you, man. I don't know if you check this out on my website,
But
but
just let me finish with the
oh,
race
sorry,
the
yeah.
race story there. With this Ragnarök also brought the separation between, because they lost the connection to the Aesir, which were managing the entire breeding system and the system of the entire civilization. So they took a shrunk down system in 10 tropical ringlands that sort of survived this in mostly in the south, like equator. I don't know the exact. Jim has been mentioning some kind of mountain range. I'm not gonna say anything on that, but there's a mountain range that where the ice sort of stopped, and there were 10 tropical races that created their own race from one race that we were from the beginning, the Van race. One race. And they also developed their own, I don't know what kind of connections they have. But then brings us to the end of the Ice Age, where it gets really interesting, because then the Aesir people appears on the world stage again, so to speak. And the first
When?
encounter, 10,000 around 10,000 years ago, and they had a gift from the Aesir, which was the agriculture. So they spread the agriculture around the world around 10,000 years ago. And if you look at archaeology and all of this, it's around 10,000 years ago archaeology also sort of became a thing in the world. And you also have the mentions of those demigods coming from the heaven in different cultures. So those kind of alien-like creatures coming from the heavens. But in this sense, the heavens is also up there, on the top. So it's all about translation. So I'm very like skeptical. I must be like, I don't know anyone that I know that are as skeptical as me. Like a friend of mine who is a really deep Christian, he says you have to believe. I say I don't have to believe anything. I don't want to believe anything, because you can have logic and think about things instead of just believing. I mean, it's just irrational to believe anything, really. The only belief in this story, the Bok Saga, is to be the leave in this death process to go back to Valhalla. The belief story, they call it. Because, yeah, you put your soul into the roots of the tree, and for one moment you are supposed to be the leaf, and that's the belief they have. So, but that's very spiritual, so you can't really know before you're dead, I guess. And yeah, go ahead, your book there.
Read this book on witchcraft, and part of it was really interesting to me, um, because it's talking about what the church was like after, as far as people today kind of have this idea of, like, the witch burnings. Um, you know, There, it was like 700 years before the first witch was ever burned. So the first 700 years of uh, the church, witchcraft was illegal, but they never burned a witch until 700 years later. That's interesting because it kind of makes you wonder, well, why? And you look at what else was going on during that time. There was a lot of stuff going on.
But
There was
you also have to think about, the Vatican maybe have records that they doesn't show. It's like history sort of began when the church rolled in, and I don't know. It's maybe it has been getting more aggressive. I don't know. I'm just the thing that rang in my head is that when they came to the more northern areas where the source of the evil for them really came out on, they knew they were the last to have some kind of opposition against this tyrannical force that were coming from the south. So I don't know. It's just I'm thinking about the Templars, underground networks. They influence people to maybe still going on with traditions that are taboo to the church, so they have to enforce things and to make a point. You should not drink tea. You're getting burned at the stake. Heresy. At the same point, or at the same time, you have like those forces working from within the system, this kind of lying strategy and all of this. I mean, it's a very complex thing. But this is my thought on when you're talking about this witchery. I'm just thinking about this innocent women making tea, because during this time the women were really the heart of the home in many. It was the thing. Everyone had a role, so to speak, and it was very sexist today. So the women were making the tea. It's even a tradition that Eeyore had, and he was really forceful with that, almost like people like were shaking their heads when he was so traditional about the tea making. It's a woman thing, and it's about the herbs, and it's everything around that. It make you look like a witch even today if you're a home gardener, tea maker, or a naturalist. Hippie.
yeah, you can pretty much live off of tea.
Yeah. Well, I don't recommend people trying, but I mean, Jim almost did that.
Well,
He was
say
eating
if
like
you
chocolate and drinking tea.
when you make stew, um, the broth actually has more nutrients than the stuff in it.
Hmm. Yeah, I'm not. I don't want to come out as some kind of health advisor here, but I mean, there's a lot of power within the tea. I actually have tea on the drying right now that I have been gathering a few weeks ago. You should take it before the fruit come. Just a tip. Before the bloom. Then you have all
Yeah,
the power in the leaf. It's like waiting. It's
about 7 years ago, I was drying out a lot of herbs and stuff, but I've been on the move so much, I haven't really been able to do any of that. Sucks, man.
yeah, it's
Why we need witches. We actually need witches.
mhm.
That way we can go get our tea whenever we need it.
Yes. I mean,
Yeah.
you can't go to like a coffee shop and get the real deal. That's impossible. I mean, we have certain stores here in the city where you can buy like the real deal, and you can. I saw that you could even buy like Eeyore's favorite tea. It comes from India. Some kind of, it's a little bit more expensive tea. What was the name? I don't really. Oh, this sucks because I wanted to recommend it. It's like a green tea that is so good, and it becomes the leaves. So it's fine today. I mean, look at the British. They have established a tea culture out of this world. I mean, it's not taboo anymore. Isn't that really like weird that they
Women out there,
established?
just put a sign in your yard that says "Herbal Witch." That way we know where to go.
Yes.
Get our tea.
I mean, the understanding of it, when you really think about it, because it's like, if you really, really think about it, everything comes from sunlight and minerals. It's like the two key component in herb gardening. You can have sand, you can have like artificial stuff. You don't even need earth. The two things you need is minerals, which you can buy on bottle, and of course water. But minerals, water, and the sunlight is really what creates it. And the earth is a byproduct of, also it's a byproduct of the nature. I mean, the earth has been created by the plants, the jord we call it. For instance, after the ice age here in Sweden, everything was just rock, scraped rock, minerals and water still left. And the gran, the pine tree, or the fir tree, I mean, pine tree is the tall. It grows tall. And the gran, the fir tree, it can grow on the rock. It can grow on the granite. That's why it's called gran, because it can grow on the gran, eller granit. The granite. It's etymology connected even. So when you, the thing they did, they were growing all those kind of new article plants, which they must have been cultivating by themselves, the author, and then they just burned the entire forest in valleys and so they could create this kind of mylla or jord, we call it, the earth, so they could grow crops in that, and they developed this kind of agricultural culture. It's supposed to come from the north because we were the only one needing it on the planet to survive. So we could store and have food in the winter. It's not needed in the tropics, but the author gave it to the world 10,000 years ago, according to this story. So it's yeah, I don't know where I was going with this, but it's very interesting because it's so, everyone can imagine that it has been scraped clear. So the real thing is that it come from the sun. The power really come from the sun to grow, because without the sun it's just death. No growing thing that can create the mylla or the earth, which everything else is like depending on. For example, the cow eats the grass. I mean, if it can sustain on the grass, that body, why can't the human also sustain on grass? But the grass come from the sunlight and minerals. And when they're making the tea, they have those wells that have this brown water, not filtered to, no filtered water. You have the brown water that contains the mineral. So we call them brunn, and the word for brown is brun. It's it's the brown brunn. So with the mineral component, and of course you have the water inside of that, put that in a pot, make it like 70 or 80 Celsius. I'm gonna look out how much that is in Fahrenheit. Wait. but it's very
Pretty hot.
it's very important that you don't put it to 100 Celsius, which is the boiling point, because then you're gonna destroy the life within the leaf. It's very, very important. So when we're talking about tea, I mean that's probably why most people don't like green tea, because they boil it, they overboil it. I have this, I make it like 80 degrees, and then you know, it sits for a little while because I use this kind of heater, and then I just put it in a cup, and then I put the leaf inside this kind of tea bag thing that I have, and then I wait 20 minutes depending on the cup, but around 20-30 minutes is the best. And then you even get this gold colored or even red depending on the herb. It's a fantastic thing. And I also have a little bit of honey in it if I want. Okay, I'm gonna look here. The optimal 80 degrees Celsius, we can say 70. That's around 158 Fahrenheit. So if you go all the way, don't go above 176, around that if you can. No boiling. So that's how you make tea. And how to make proper tea, you need a well with brown water if you're gonna be closest to it. I mean, people are like, that's filthy, it needs to be like crystal clear water, but they had different kind of wells. The brown water well is for the tea making, and the clear water well, which often is like an underground spring or anything, there you can clean clothes and, you know, fresh water for maybe dehydration. But I don't really think they drank anything else but tea kind, even cold. I mean, it's probably had in some kind of leather bags, or, you know, people are very inventive. I don't have the perspective of the human being, this kind of grunty primate. That's not in my world. I mean, that's just a theory, really.
Yeah, and you look at some of the technologies for like fire starting. The bow drill. Have you ever checked that out?
I don't know. I never heard about it.
Yeah, the bow drill.
Bow drill?
It's a
Oh, yeah.
bow drill.
Bow
Yeah.
drill, yes. Oh, yes, of course. I think the first fire
Yeah.
came from the lightning, though. I think that's probably quite correct, because the lightning has to do with Odin, and all of this is very strong in the mythology in Saga. Maybe. I mean, forest fires. But the bow drill and all of this, I mean, it's quite complex things. I mean, even the
I've made
yeah. You have tried.
I've made one before. Yeah. So there's actually symbolism associated with the different parts of it. So there's the fireboard where you have to put your foot on it to hold it.
Yeah.
And then you cut a notch, like a V-shaped notch, and then the spindle, and then the handpiece, and of course the bow with the string. So the notch is like the female, and the spindle is the male. But then the handpiece puts the pressure from above, which is like the creator. Because the creator always puts pressure. And the string is friendship. So there's more to it than that, but just the idea and the form that you have to actually to be successful in starting a fire with that method, you actually have to put your body in a specific form, which uh, have you ever seen the star card of the tarot?
Yes, but I have the Rider White deck there.
Yes. So
I'm
that
trying
that
to
woman,
picture it, but
yeah, that there's a woman. She's down on one knee, uh, and then she has her other foot forward in the water, and then she's holding two jugs and pouring water out.
mm.
But that body form is the swastika because um,
It's the North
because
Pole
the arms
reference.
and legs, yeah,
I
and it's
mean,
kind of similar to how you have to hold your body when you're using the fire drill, is sort of in that swastika pose.
that's very interesting. I mean, those tarot. I mean, the ta root. It means to take root. This is very interesting, but it's this brings us into really. I mean, this is very good conversation, Caleb, because it's. I mean, makes you think about things that are really interesting to explore. Uh, I mean, just this. I was thinking about symbolism around like the sword, the the armorspilar or what do you say in English about this kind of angel or being that shoots arrows at couples to make them fall in love.
Cupid,
Cupid.
yeah,
We call it amor. Alltså mor
okay,
is mother. Amor. Amors pilar or the arrows of Amor. Very
amorous love.
very yeah, exactly. But that symbolism is very like you explaining this fire starter also. I mean it's a bow and an arrow, right? And you put pressure. It's the same principle in one way, in symbolical terms, except you have the killing or the you had a different function for. I mean, if you have a bow, you could easily just use that to make fire with. Also, it's a bow, and the sword symbolism and shields and all of this we associate it with everything. It has been turned 180 degrees. Also, this, but this bow and arrow seems to still be a little bit more innocent also with the love aspect, but the club, the sword, the shield, the helmet, the lance, it has all become an image of warfare in modern sense with killing people. But if you look into Boksaga, it means the complete opposite. It's just different types of people equipped with different kinds of, but they put it into symbology to distinct if you're a breeder or if you're a club person or yeah.
You had some thoughts on the wolf symbol, right?
Yeah, the
Because the
Susi,
wolf is sacred to all of the people of the North.
the Vari, but it's really the church. The church is in church mythology, so to speak. The wolf is a really negative animal, and like when they came into Finland and the old offering places and the sacred groves, sacred groves is a really a heathen thing. We call it a lund, one offer lund. Like in the cemetery we have here, where I grew up, we have an offer lund. Those kind of, you know, when they wanted to build on top of those or even forget about them, they call it like Wolf Island instead of Vinö, which is a sermonolic, what you call ceremony place for the heathen. They changed the name from like Vinö, which means like sperm island, or but not like vin is also like the word for wine today. It's places of ceremony, but they change often. They when the church come in, they start to call those islands like Vargö, Vargskär, all those kind of wolf. Varg is wolf. Sisusari in Finnish, Sisu. And yeah, I think it has to do with like a late game strategy that they don't go there because it's associated. Now the next generation who has the Christian mindset and the Christian mythology, they are gonna refer to this place as a really terrible place, so it becomes like this pirate island or ghost island. It's all this scare tactics that the church are famous to use. So, but the wolf symbol must be, the wolf comes from the north. Domesticated wolves becomes the original hound were used in warfare also, like with the Vikings. They had a wolf companion also on the battlefield also. So it must have become a symbol, especially during the Viking ages, for the pagans.
Right, but didn't the wolf have some significance back in the Ringland days as well?
I don't know. I don't think. There's no story about that from the Box Saga, which I heard. This is probably a wolf story. I mean, if you talk to Michelle, we could ask about the wolf. We would get a clear picture probably. This is the thing, you can go into such detail and it requires often like an hour of explanation, so you're getting on the ride. You need to be ready for the ride also. It's
Totally different question now.
yeah.
Something I want to have you touch on. Jim and those guys went down to Goa in India, right?
Mm-hmm.
Is that place have a special significance? Was that actually the
Yes.
place where those 10 tribes were at when they set up their new version of the it was like they lost contact with the Aesir.
Nah,
So
this is my own thinking. I think Eeyore got like instructed by his mother and her sister to go to India, I think, or to start there, because this Kali Yuga they call it, or the chaos of the complete destruction of the offering system and the heathendom, it started in India with Narkasul and the killing of Narkasul. You have Krishna coming there in this mythology, coming from the north, one flip out from the Asur family, bringing the Brahman cow or the cow, the first domesticated animal, and the Asur policy, which I heard, was that the world wasn't ready for the domesticated animal, but he brought it there in one exile situation, like the Jesus parent, and he killed sort of the offering system in India and started the first priest class, which was called the Brahmans, and thereafter Christianity developed from India in this story. So I think it's sort of the like Eeyore going down to India, because they still have like this. They have the only living mythology on the planet, the Hindu. You can ask anyone on the street about the mythology and they know about Hindu mythology. I think it has to do with going to the place where all the bad started, to change it from there, or it's just very symbolical, I think, to go down to India and starting rolling out the saga there, or from there. I mean, it's going to the roots of the problem, because that's really what I think Eeyore's intention. You know, I've been listening to like all tapes of Eeyore. Maybe I missed some, but it's sort of, when he talks Swedish, I can also follow that, and he doesn't speak Finnish, so I can listen 100% on what Eeyore has to say, and I can really, when he goes and talks Swedish, it's more like close to home. When he speaks English, it's much more like he goes into the saga and all this, but when he really goes into the Swedish, you get the. He was actually on national television in Finland talking Swedish on like state television. There's on YouTube, you can see it. It has subtitles, and he talks about the problem with the Arctic people, like in Finland and so. He's sort of ashamed of them because they just look down in their shoes. You know, they are really disconnected from each other up here. It's a different. But when he goes to India, he sort of elevates them, because when you go down the street there, people are actually looking each other in the eyes, and you know, it's sort of a different. But anyway, it's, I think, the core purpose, because Eeyore was planned like 1,000 years back within the Bock family. He was supposed to be the last Bock, and going to India must have been something that has been instructed long time ago, and it has to do with going to the root of this, of the world problem. I think he saw it like that, or the Bock family, to go to the essence of the problem, where it come from. It needs to end there also. Sort of. It's sort of this. I can't hear you, Caleb.
Well, I mean, the betas come from there, right? The betas, pretty sure.
I think the first written text come there, from there also, like actually written.
Well, the betas are related to the Eddas. So
Yeah.
the Eddas are the older one, and the betas are based on those.
That's
Of
cool.
course, not admitted or not recognized, but
Your audio is really bad now, Caleb. I don't know what you're doing there.
oh, can you hear me?
Yeah, no, now it's good.
Yeah, I was saying the betas are connected to the Eddas.
Seems to. Maybe so. I haven't read the Vedas, but I have read a little bit in the Eddas, and it's really interesting. If you just skip the translation, go straight to the source, you can sort of read. But it's also translations. This is the problem. You should have the source material. Otherwise, it becomes speculations on top of speculations. Really. I don't know about the Vedas. Is it war stories or what is it?
The Vedas are more so. The Eddas, obviously. Well, see, after the dislocation from the north, like after the cataclysm and the lands of the north were wrecked, that was where a lot of people ended up, was down in India.
Probably.
So,
but yeah, I mean,
so when you get those texts popping up in India, people today think, oh, the Vedas, they come from India. Well, actually, it was people who relocated to India from the north and then brought the stories with them.
I have to
So
use.
those were written by people.
Yes.
Yeah, they were written by people who had relocated to India from the north.
Yeah, we have a lot of those cases. They are called like demigods and all those kind of many names. That's how I think. But I have to like put in there when I say like the first text were written in India. I just came to think about the story about this Moses or Moses. It's a woman, also one like flip out program from the author, but she came with the text or the written language. So, according to this, the first like letter system. Uh, and I just had to put that in there so I stay correct to this mythology. But it sort of makes sense. But that's after. So she was supposed to save the rabbis. Because they went into this exile due to the Krishna story taking over and flipping India around. I think it was called like Hindustan. It's interesting, they call it Stan, and when I go downtown we say Stan when I'm going into the city. It's a thing they also say in India about the city. It's interesting that we share that. Well, what to say, Caleb?
Yeah.
I'm kind of burned out. It's too hot in here. The sun never sets now.
Oh, really?
No.
You're that far north?
Mm-hmm.
Dang.
It's not far from the pole circle, but it sort of dips a little bit, but it's not dark. It's very bright, and it's hot. But we're gonna get winds from the Atlantics now coming in, so it's gonna go through the mountains. Gonna get cold water coming from the mountains, and so I think it's gonna get better. But I'm melting, man. I mean, I noticed this with my friends from like the Mexico and Iran, Iraq. They like this, but I'm melting. I'm like snow.
Yeah, I hear you.
Same for you?
You're gonna have to put some ice in that tea then.
Iced tea.
Iced tea, man.
Sort of go against all I believe in. But of course, if I make it hot in the beginning and then put the ice in, sure. But how good will it be? I mean, then you need a lot of sugar. I mean,
you put sugar in? You don't strike me as the kind of person who would put sugar in their tea.
No, but I mean honey. It's sugar.
Oh, okay.
I have this really good locally produced honey. It get different taste depending on where the bee or the has been gathering the pollen. It really does. It can even affect like the color a little bit. So you can have like a real fucking hippie having this kind of herb garden, and everything you can have like the beodling, the bee. What do you even call it in English? Like the wasp or the where you produce the honey.
Honeybees.
Honeybees, but the nest.
Yeah.
The honeybee nest.
The honeycomb or the
Honeycomb.
the honeycomb. Well, I mean, you
Yeah.
don't call them a honeycomb until it's like
They're complete.
it would just be a bee's nest.
Hmm.
A bee's nest, and then when you harvest it and cut it open, it's the honeycomb on the inside.
They have become red listed in Sweden actually. I don't know what's going
Huh.
on with them. I think I saw this guy made a study. He was working at a telecom company, and he was already signaling about the 3G, I remember, and how it affects the insects. And now, with even more frequency power, It's a weird. I think in China they are like extinct almost.
Hmm.
Very interesting thing because he flagged it because he made, in Sweden they make everything proper. It's still there. You know, the scientists and all of those really clever people, and the culture here in Sweden is to be so formal. Everything has to go through the processes. Otherwise, you're sort of in the underground scene, like me. I'm always been in like the underground scene. I'm not a formal person in that sense. I, but the working type at university or whatever, they are very. It strikes me how high quality we have in the thinking. I mean, he got suppressed by it he was doing this research by honest means. Saw how it affected the smaller insects with those 3G technology and this. Something that needs to go, I think.
We've been on 4G for a long time over here.
I wonder, imagine in China. I mean, I live, the Swedish cities are like forest cities, and it's not too many people living here. I can just imagine in like big cities, like in America, China, India, but China and America are the most technological in a massive scale, I guess. Russia is like, I don't know about their technology, but they ain't really good at the technological part. I think they import most from like Europe and China, the more the higher tech. But
Yeah, if we didn't import, we probably wouldn't have much over here either.
not okay.
No, I
Germany,
don't
I
think
think
we.
Germany produce a lot of tech also.
We don't even make our own touch screens.
Oh,
So all of our cell phones and iPads and stuff come from other countries.
hmm. Well, it's when you start to think about the world, and we can talk for fucking. I have opinions, but I'd rather not touch it. To be honest, too much. It's nice to, of course, can if you have some kind of more. I hate to speculate, but it's interesting to even to follow still. I mean, I don't read the newspapers. I take like maybe on a Sunday I can read and catch up.
Me and a good number of other people kind of turned off the news
Hmm.
um, back in like after 2020 was over. We
Hmm.
realized that all that shit was a distraction anyways.
It
What you
is.
got to remember, what people got to remember is you got to go back and watch some of Michael Tsarian's original presentations where it's been demonstrated
He's
that
predicted a lot.
the primary concern of current events is to affect your consciousness. So when you're reading the news and all this stuff is happening and it's stressing you out, it's putting your consciousness into the limbic uh, part of the brain, and uh, they put this stuff out, and, and people still fall for it because they think it's important, and it really seems really important, but um, it's it's like a satanic ritual, man. They got the priest there, and he's controlling everybody, uh,
Yes.
building that anticipation because the masters of ritual, know how to like create that tension, build the anticipation, and string you along.
But it's
That's
all
what it's
about
all.
it's all about the information
And
system.
for example, this last thing that happened that everybody has been distracted by, this bill where it's talking about pregnant women and what
Mm.
they have the right to do or whatever. This all happened when there was a new moon in Cancer. So um, the sign of Cancer has to do with mothers and pregnancy.
The Scorpius.
So the only reason they fucking did that had nothing to do with what everybody thinks it does. It literally they just did it because they wanted
No,
you to focus on that.
it's
They
the
wanted
kräfta.
everybody to
Yes, yes.
yeah, they did that because they wanted everybody to focus on it at that particular time.
Mm.
And what did everybody do? They fell for it and they focused on it.
But it's also this
And
symbol of the womb a little bit, crawling back to the womb. This we call it kräfta. It's the shell animal in symbolic terms.
yeah,
Yeah,
the crab.
yeah. It's sort of, but it can sort of retract into the shell like a snail. Also, not the kräfta in itself, but this kind of shell animal is very interesting when you go into
And
astrology.
that's kind of what happened with the controversy is that I saw people posting on Facebook saying, if anybody disagrees with me about this, unfriend me and never talk to me again. So it's like they're that crab that's pulling into its shell.
Mm.
See, it. What people should do if they're going to pay attention to the news, they should analyze it from that point of view. Because I take it, you can take what I'm saying or leave it, but that is the only reason any of this shit happens is because of the intention of how it's going to affect your consciousness. The whole thing with uh, the election that happened a couple of years ago, and all of the mainstream and alternative coverage of everything that was going on with that, it brought people's consciousness to an ultra uh, stressed out,
Yes.
ultra heightened, tense uh, state of mind because they drew it out, and delayed and delayed and delayed. Um,
Oh man.
and everybody was like sitting on the edge of their seat. And
I can just imagine in America. I mean, the rings from that situation in America reached the shores of Europe so hard. Also, I mean, people has been fighting over if you like the Clintons or the Trump. You know, you can get into real heated arguments even here in Sweden about on that subject during that time. You know, with Trump and that. I'm thinking, and yeah, it's
yeah, stop
another
thinking
level.
that it's that your opinion on any of these things actually matters,
Yeah, that's what
and
I'm trying
start
to tell
think,
my surrounding. You know, what can you do about it? Do something. Don't sit here and burn up in your head over this. I mean, I told my same thing to my mother. She was feeling really bad. You know, really stressed out and just terrible.
hey, if you want to if you want to follow these stories, here's a new game that you can play. Instead of debating over your opinions on what they've presented to you, debate on how or what the intention was for why they directed your attention to that. Have fun.
Yeah, then it's gonna end the conversation right ahead, I can tell you. But that's the funny thing when you're on this kind of level of perspective. You can sort of, it's a power to really see through all the lies and to be grounded in what, in your moral compass and all of this, because I think that's really what the historical aspect, when you sort of wake up from the historical amnesia and you get grounded into not believing, but you are very sure that this must be the case, how stuff played out. But of course, you're gonna miss a lot of things, and it's a journey that is gonna be lifelong. But to at least recognize that there are powers in this world that don't want you too well, and that they are very powerful, and to even recognize that it's on the government level, like on in most country in Europe and America, and yeah, it's the clutch of oligarchs almost. They show the hydras are everywhere now. You know, they have exposed themselves really during the COVID and the Trump thing. It's really interesting. We have even fraud. As the last election here in Sweden probably was the same case like in America, but in a different niche. You know, they they stole the election here too, but it's not on the same level like in America.
I
So
think the virus thing was the first time that the powers that be ever kept something in the news cycle for longer than 2 months.
hmm,
Because normally they have, and this goes also for the alternative uh, community, is that they'll focus everybody in on something for like 2 months, but then after that 2 months, you don't hear shit about it anymore, and it's on to something else. Because that's kind of like the attention span for anything. So like some big event happens somewhere, everybody's focused on it for like 2 months, man. They're
yeah,
but it sort of like gradually weans off
I,
towards the last several weeks, and then it's done, and then something else happens.
I think it's very
Whereas
intentional. The Jewish would
yeah,
call it a golem. It's a thing that takes life on its own. A golem. If you Google up and look at the golem in Jewish like mythology, this is really what they are playing with. They create those kind of golems, and the COVID golem is a massive fucking leviathan. Uh, yeah, we will see where it goes, Caleb. We need to make more updates as we go.
yeah,
Implement.
we'll
We will round off now because it's getting like midnight here. I'm gonna
okay. I
work
gotta go
tomorrow,
get some food. Well,
but
it's been good talking to you.
yeah, likewise. You're like, yeah, really good for my mind also. But
Well,
it's nice to talk in this honest setup where there's no point of talking point. I think
yeah,
uh,
it works pretty good.
it does. I mean, yeah, we can't do it every day though, but I think it brings a lot of quality to the conversation because we sort of comprom. I think that's the beauty with the human being when they talk from the heart without a script. It becomes like this very compressed knowledge, and I think that's what they call like wisdom or wisdom. It's the old Eden way. They don't have those kind of scripts and prompters. They talk from the heart or the from the core of their being.
Yeah, we should talk about that next time too, because that's a big thing.
It is. It is. You
Yeah,
can really hear it. I can hear if someone is talking from a script. I sort of, you can hear it. The politicians doesn't talk from a script, but they are sort of scripted. They are trained politicians today. I mean, come on. What? We have schools for politics in Sweden. I mean, then you're just a politruk, we call it. It's a Russian concept. Anyway, we leave it there, man.
All right.
Enjoy the
Have
summer.
a good night.
Thank you. It's morning for
Will
you.
do. Well, it's day for you for the next
All right.
month and a half, but enjoy your
My
day.
siesta.
Yeah.
All right. You take care, mate.
You too.
Bye-bye.
Bye.